Come on. Okay. All right. She needs no introduction whatsoever, but we're still going to give her one. Olympic gold winner, ESPN college softball analyst. Are you kidding me? Michele Smith joins Diamond Envy. Michele, thank you so much for doing this, especially at a time when I know you got a crazy busy schedule. How's the season been so far as you're kind of going all over the country these days?
Well, Tyler, thanks for having me.
Mhm.
First off, I'm glad to be on a Diamond Envy. And obviously, I love to talk about softball. Yeah, it is a crazy time of year for us, but it's all great things, right? I mean, yeah, I'm crazy because I'm busy with softball, so
Yeah.
I'm very blessed. You know, it is an interesting world now. 2 years out from the COVID shutdown. It's amazing how our broadcasting has changed. I've been able to call games actually out of my house, which has a lot of advantages and disadvantages. For mid-season or midweek games, I love the fact that I can call multiple conferences on a weekend. I can see a lot of different teams. I can shut off my computer and I'm at home. I'm not running to catch a plane, but there's something to be said for being on site, and that's coming very soon.
No doubt. 17-0. OU's off to a really nice run so far. And I don't think that anyone's shocked nationally at the way that they played this early on in the season. But how does this team look so far in the season compared to what you thought it was going to be this year, especially when you evaluate what's happened in the circle for this team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, they win the national championship last year. They graduate, excuse me, G Juarez. I think there's a lot of questions like how strong are they going to be in the circle? And then they just pick up, Patty Gasso does an amazing job of formulating, and I say formulating because she does have a formula of putting together a really special team year in and year out. She does a great job of recruiting. She builds great culture. And so you see that year in and year out, Oklahoma is able to plug in great athletes where great athletes graduate and go on to do other things in life. So Jordy Ball just coming in as is stepping in right where G Juarez and others that have left off. So I'm really excited where this team is at this point in the season.
This isn't supposed to happen to a freshman, Michele. Freshmen are supposed to get in the circle early on against UCLA and Arizona and Tennessee and face a little adversity. And she faced a little adversity a couple weekends ago in California. I guess what's impressed you the most about her just coming in to what most would say is the best program in the country and just kind of instantly filling the gap as this team's ace?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's very talented. She's unique in her pitching style in the sense that she's tough to time. She's got great movement, great velocity. I mean, she does the three things right that I think are so important in pitching, and that's speed, spins, and spots. And if you have those three things, or even two of those three, you're going to be good at the college level. When you have three of those things, you're an elite pitcher at the collegiate level. So she's done a really good job of coming in, staying in the moment, not letting the moment get too big, and then relying on her defense. I think the other thing that is always magical for the pitching staff of the Sooners is the fact that their offense is probably their second or third best pitcher, because they know they can put up a lot of runs. And when you have that confidence in the circle, knowing that you can make a mistake and it's not going to hurt you, you're not going to lose the game because you throw one bad pitch. It will take multiple bad pitches. It will take working yourself into a corner. When you have 6, 7, 8 runs a game going up on the board, it allows you to pitch free. And I think that's one of the big things that we've seen with Oklahoma the last couple of years with this explosive offense.
As a pitcher, what would you tell her right now with all the early success that she's had and the long career that she has in the sport with college softball?
Well, adversity will come and you have to learn to deal with it. And it is softball, and you have to look at life in a certain way where even when I was in Olympic Games, I would think to myself, there are probably 1.8 billion Chinese that really don't care if I win this game right now. So perspective is a good thing. And we all, no matter what our level, we all hit bumps in the road, and you just that's where you dig deep. That's where you get that adversity. That's where it pulls out your who you are as a person, and how well you can rely on your team, and dig deep to work harder so that next time you can fix maybe things that have been going wrong. So I think though that she's a pretty level-headed kid, and I think that she's on a great path, and she's got really good support system around her. So I think when or if any bumps in the road come, I think she'll be well versed and well prepared.
Michelle, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but we are very irritated around Oklahoma right now because of all the intentional walks that's happening to Jocelyn Allo. Um, what's your thoughts on that situation? As she's trying to chase the record or to break the record, but she's not getting a whole lot of chances to hit here recently.
Yeah, so that was disappointing. She got to the record really quickly, right? So she got to Lauren Chamberlain really quickly, and then she's been kind of stuck on the number and with the tie, and just not been able to break it. And that's where the walks have come. So I think she's at 19 walks on the season. I did like the fact that Baylor threw to her last night in
Yeah.
Hawaii. I do
Hmm.
think in a way maybe it's the silver lining is that hopefully she breaks it this weekend in Hawaii, in her home state. I mean, how gratifying would that be for her and for her fans, for her family? So sometimes wonky things happen in life for a reason, and I think she will get it here on this road trip in Hawaii. It's just part of the game, unfortunately. I have an issue with it, and I said this on the Seven Innings podcast. I have an issue with people pitching around her when the game is not on the line. When the
Yeah.
game's on the line and she's the number one kid, the number one athlete in the box that you don't want to beat you, I get it, because she would be intentionally walked in that situation anyway. But when she's leading off an inning, or when she's up with 2 outs and they still walk her, that's when I get a little frustrated, and I wish they would give her the opportunity to hit the ball the way she
Sure.
hits the ball.
Last question about OU before we move to, a little bit more of a national perspective. Getting to the mountain in any sport, but especially this sport, is one thing. Staying on the mountain for a long period of time, that's a totally different challenge. Patty reached the mountain several years ago, but
Yeah.
she stayed on it. And from my view here in Norman, Oklahoma, maybe you can make an argument with the SEC move and with the new stadium coming that maybe even better days are coming for the OU softball program, which is incredible to think about. But from what you've seen, how has Patty been able to get to the mountain and then stay on it so long and really kind of develop the most dominant program in the sport?
Well, I think it's her competitive nature. I think it's the culture she builds. I think that she challenges her athletes, and she expects a certain level of performance, focus on themselves, that when she is preparing her team at such an elite level, it really doesn't matter who she's playing, she's going to be successful. So absolutely, a lot of people get to the top of the mountain and fall off it pretty quickly. She has stayed there, and I think a lot of it is because she grabs hungry kids. She's got really good freshmen who come in hungry. The juniors and the seniors maybe I've been here, done that, but that freshman blood comes in, or those transfers come in, and they want their share of a national championship. They don't care that that Oklahoma won last year. I wasn't wearing an Oklahoma jersey last year.
Yeah.
I want mine this year. So I think she does a good job of really putting together that special formula that keeps her program at the top. And, the staff is very strong. So I think it's just all the way around a really good winning culture, and she does a great job.
Looking across the country, Northwestern may be a little bit of a surprise to some teams. Duke and Virginia Tech, I believe, are both in the top 10 as well. But where I'm sitting, Michelle, I'm looking at Oklahoma, of course, as a real legitimate national title contender. But I'm also looking at Alabama. I'm looking at Florida State and Florida. Those look like the best four teams to me, the four serious contenders for a national championship this year. Do you have any omissions to that four or any additions to that list?
Well, I think you can never count out UCLA. The culture as well that they have. I think that they have some potential to go deep when all of their team is strong. So again, I think that you always have to throw UCLA in the mix of that. I think interesting this year is Oklahoma State. They've done a
Yeah.
good job of building a great culture up there as well. And I love this. I love that Kenny Gajewski has come in and really built that program back up. I feel like it's great for both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, that competition. I'm very proud of all things Oklahoma softball, USA softball. I mean, it's one of softball capital of the world. A lot of people like to say. It is interesting. I think that Virginia Tech is a lot better than people think. I was worried about their batting average going into Clemson, and they were like, "Do not worry about us, Michelle, or anybody else in the country. We are going to be just fine." And when they went on to Clemson and swept them in Clemson's on their own ground, so the softball season is always interesting because there's just enough time for people to get beat up, to get in a little bit of a slump, to play some hard teams, and you got to go into May confident, and that's really going to be the key. I think Oklahoma stays confident. I think that Washington, if Gabby is in the circle and they have a really good schedule, I think you have to be super careful of them. Yeah, Northwestern's been lights out. So I do think what's interesting is that there's a lot of great mid majors this year. Look at
Totally.
Gina. Yeah, right. Georgina Korick, what she's doing with USF. You can never count out JMU, Louisiana. I could go on and on. There's going to be some surprises, and I think those surprises can show up at a regional and knock some teams off. So I do think this is an interesting year, but it does seem like there's a good chance any one of us analysts could write out 8 teams that we think we'll see in the College World Series, and there's probably a good chance that 80% of them will be there.
Well, what's interesting, and I think what's great for the sport too, is you mentioned about 10 teams right there. And outside of UCLA and Washington, if you would have mentioned those teams 10 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, we'd say, who? What? No. This is a West Coast dominated sport, and there's still some really good West Coast softball out there, no doubt. But are we seeing a power shift a little bit in the sport from the West Coast to maybe the Southeast? And if so, what's the reason behind that?
Yeah, I think that absolutely has happened. I think that a lot of California athletes came to the East Coast. I think TV, the SEC network, I think the ACC network is now really helping, the ACC. Think about it. We always talked about the ACC. It was Florida State and really nobody else. But now there's Clemson, there's Duke, Georgia Tech is good this year, Virginia Tech. I mean, they've got a really strong conference. So I do think as well, softball's developed in Florida and in Texas and in Georgia, Virginia. Look at the kids that are coming out. There's better training facilities inside. So I think absolutely the sport has grown. When I was on the Olympic team, I was one of very few players from the East Coast. Everybody else was from Arizona and California because that's just where the athletes were playing year round. So now that we've got kids from the East Coast flying out to the West Coast to be a part of, the Bat Busters or some of the different, summer ball programs, I think we're seeing kids from all over the country end up going to schools that they love, coaches that they love, and I think it's good for the sport. Nobody wants to see the same team win all the time. Nobody wants to see the same conference win all the time. So I think it's been very healthy for our sport.
Last question, and with what you just said, how humbling is it to kind of be one of the main faces that's helping lead this new era of college softball? Because we talk all the time on this podcast how the game is just exploding. I know that so many OU fans are all about softball. They prefer it over baseball now. It's just an exciting sport. So for you to have the history that you have with the sport, and now it's kind of a new era of the game, you're one of the faces that gets to help lead it and push this. When you think about that, how does that make you feel?
I feel great about it. I'm very humbled to have been in the sport for so long. I love my history in it. When I look back at, some of the athletes I've played against that, were even unfortunately a little bit too old to even make the Olympics. I was very blessed. I was kind of on that cusp. So I do feel a lot of responsibility to continue to grow the sport because obviously I'm passionate about it. And I think that the more we show it off to people, the more people become passionate about it and want to watch it. And they realize how talented our athletes are and how special they are, how quick the game moves. And I think that it's that wow factor that you can't really compare it, right? Men's and women's basketball, you can compare because it's relatively the same game. Baseball and softball, we understand it because baseball is America's sport, right? And so we understand softball, but then all of a sudden you're like, whoo, how do those women throw that ball 70 miles an hour underhand? And then even a better question, how do they hit it from that close? So I think it has the wow factor, and you don't really see a lot of men playing fast pitch softball on national television. So all of a sudden people are like, wow, these girls, like, look at it. It's like baseball, but it's just different enough that, we don't think the boys can compete with the girls, so you, so you get this, you get this great dynamic. But back to your question, absolutely, I'm very proud. We have some great people at ESPN. I am proud to have seen the sport grow through ESPN. Meg Aronowitz and a ton of people at ESPN have worked tirelessly to put the sport on television, because the more people see it, the more they fall in love with, the more they want to watch it, and that's really what it comes down to. That's why the growth has exploded since the '96 Olympics springboarded it, and then regular season softball that really started in 2007, 2008, actually right after I retired from playing professionally for 16 years for Toyota in Japan. I came home and went right into broadcasting full time, and it's just exploded ever since.
She's Michele Smith, ESPN college softball analyst, Olympic gold winner. And since I visited MichelleSmith.com, you should too. I know that she's going to be on the OU Kentucky broadcast on March 2nd in Lexington. So we look forward to that, Michele. All the best luck this year, and we will see you in Oklahoma City.
I look forward to it, Tyler. Thank you so much.
Michele, that was awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Don't hesitate to reach out if I can help